individual consciousness is merged with higher consciousness or supreme consciousness, then our functioning is perfect. Once we have knowledge that we need, typing, you have to learn how to type. But if we're emotionally upset about something, or we're confused about something, or we haven't cleared the mind of its hubris, the best of typers make mistakes. But if you are in a clear state, free from the emotions that psychological thinking brings, you type magnificently, more than you ever expected. You play any sport that you do well. Any athlete will tell you, anytime he really fell down, like my friend Federer, the tennis genius giant, if anybody asked him, I don't know if anybody did, why he seemed distracted, he would have told us that something had probably stopped him from sleeping well, like a pair of 2-year-old twins. That might do it. But he wasn't himself. And I knew that there was something blocking the energy, blocking the techniques that are natural to him. He just wasn't playing his game. Everything that happens in life, you can tie in to these Vedantic teachings, including your own life, your own functioning. So I hope this is going to help you, Mercedes. Mercedes is a journalist, and she's going over next Saturday to Brazil to cover the Brazilian presidential election. And this morning she came in very nervous because she doesn't know anything about Brazilian politics. But she looks great now because she does know how to write. And she does know how to talk to people, otherwise they wouldn't be sending you over to do that. So just be yourself, study a little bit, but then talk to the people, and it's going to be wonderful. I can't wait to see what you write. I want to see a copy. You're welcome, but it's true for any of us. Anytime you're feeling nervous and apprehensive about some assignment or something going wrong at work, just slip back into your real form. Go into the now, and you'll be like a lighthouse for everyone around you. They will feed off of you. People will feel comforted by someone who is not laden down with thoughts and fears and tension. That's how we can spread peace in the world. Not by marching, not with signs that you used to hit the other marches on peace, you know. You're in a peace march and you're busy hitting each other with the signs. Peace in the world, bang, to the other side. I've seen these things that go on in peace marches in Washington. They're full of hate. No peace at all, unless they're a quiet thing. So I want to get to the third and fourth reading. We have time tonight. Any questions at all? Good night, dear. Give my love to Jiminy, okay? Any questions at all about this? Don't be shy, because some people from the afternoon group who were there told me that something happened when they heard an answer from Gurji that I repeated. No? You're all approximately enlightened? I should say to you what Krishnamurti said to me. Madam, are you not asking a question because you know nothing? Or because you know enough to know you know nothing? I said, I was very brave, but I think I wasn't too wise then. I said, no, it's neither one of those. I was very young. I said, it's just that I don't think I know enough to ask a question. And he looked at me with those eyes, very piercing brown eyes. He said, very good, which meant that I might come back the next time. But he was one of those no-nonsense. I can't call him a guru because he'd come back to haunt me. He was against all gurus and all organizations. He wanted you to find your own truth, to be your own guru, your own therapist, your own mother, your own father. But the fact is that every one of his followers regarded him as a guru, as a teacher, but they didn't tell him. Okay, as long as you have no questions, I'm going to read 2 more readings. And this is from a book I highly recommend because we read from it during the last 10 years with other books too, but this one mainly, Sri Brahmananda, during the last 10 years of his physical life, spent a lot of time having us read aloud from the book I Am That. And whenever it's like sometimes, how many of you like light music, such as country music or soft rock music, but you also like classical music? How many like all kinds of music? Right, okay. So you know this feeling when you've been listening to light music on the radio, a long time, days, weeks, suddenly you can't stand it anymore, and you have to put some classical music on. Even though you love country music, or love soft rock, or hard rock, rock and roll, there comes a time you need something of substance, whether it's opera, or Bach, or Wagner, Mozart, even Mozart, you yearn for Mozart, I do. And then you play nothing but classical music. They said, enough, let me hear George Jones, country music. This is how I feel about I Am That. I've been reading this for the last 2-3 weeks in the city. By the way, someone asked me about the city programs, the address. We have a few cards here with the address of the program. We offer satsang like this the first Wednesday of every month in New York City on 23rd Street between 5th and 6th, and it's well attended. I think the Facebook connection did that because many new people come I think we're going to outgrow that room. It's a rented room, but the people there are very sweet, so you can come up later if you want to come. This is called, well, I won't read the title because this section has to do with this question. I Am That, for those who do not know, is a collection of question and answer sessions with Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, who was uneducated, a simple cigarette salesman, a beedi they called him, salesman, had a cigarette shop, beedi shop in Bombay, but it was his time because after spending only really 9 months with his guru, he emerged completely enlightened from that. And so, you're just in time for the most important reading. How did you know to do that? That's very good. The other that I talked about, you know already. The questioner is asking, does a jnani die? I just opened to that this morning. Jnani die. It's from a talk called Everything Happens by Itself. A jnani is a knower of truth, an enlightened being. Maharaj, A knower of truth is beyond life and death. What we take to be inevitable, to be born and to die, this is Maharaj speaking. What we take to be inevitable, to be born and to die, appears to him, to a knower of truth, just a way of expressing movement in the immovable, expressing change in the changeless, expressing end in the endless. It's just like Gurji told me, it's like a dream. To be born, to die is like a dream to the enlightened. To the knower of truth, to Jnani, it's obvious that nothing is born and nothing dies. Nothing lasts and nothing changes. All is as it is, timelessly. Questioner, but you say the Jnani is beyond. Beyond what? What is he beyond? Beyond knowledge? Maharaj, and listen, it's as though I'm the reader. It's as though we're all, including myself, at the feet of this living master, answering questions that only an enlightened being can answer. Maharaj, knowledge has its rising and setting. Isn't it odd? We talked about the sun and the moon rising and setting. If I looked for another reading that would talk about that, I'd be still looking for weeks and weeks. But it always comes with synchronicity. It's the same message with similar intentions. Consciousness comes into being and goes out of being. Knowledge has its rising and its setting. It's a matter of daily occurrence and observation that we see this. We all know that sometimes we are conscious and sometimes not. When we are not conscious, it appears to us as a darkness or a blank. But a Jnani is aware of himself as neither conscious nor unconscious, but purely aware. A witness to the three states of the mind and their contents. What are the three states of the mind? You know, Psych 1. Say it again.
Waking, sleeping, deep sleep and dream.
Dreamless sleep. Hello, how are you? Yes, and what about the unconscious, subconscious, and superconscious? Three states. So that answer is correct, and this answer is correct. But certainly you know, I'll give you an example, that we may think we're not conscious, but there's always a witness there. And an example would be, sometimes somebody, an observer, calls the police and says, I was witness to a robbery, and I saw the car that went away, that they went away in. And the police said, did you get any number from the license plate? They said, no, it was too fast. And sometimes when it's serious, they have placed that witness under hypnosis. And under hypnosis, they had that number. That there was an unconscious recording of that number by the witness. So we may not be conscious, but the witness is always present. It's always there. It's sometimes we're not even aware we're listening or understanding something, but that's why Gurji said it's a matter of a seed being planted. that one day will blossom into wisdom for us. We're getting it all tonight, although you, like Dharmadev and myself, may not remember one word of what you're hearing. I'm talking a lot, I'm reading a lot, but you will remember a feeling that you had listening to these words. And that's what brings you back again and again, not only to this ashram, but to the feeling that the words gave you. So you go for music that gives you that feeling. You go towards friends who give you that feeling. You go towards a lover. I wasn't going to say that word, but it came out. A lover who gives you that feeling. Because you're pulled to that. You gravitate towards that. There's a magnetic yearning for that rain of nectar. It's not the thing. It's not the person who's in the guru outfit. It's the feeling that that person or thing gives you. That's what we hunger for. Right, Shanti Devi? Shanti and Mahasattva come from Brooklyn Heights. Is that where you live? Where? Cowell Gardens. Okay, is that Brooklyn Heights? Close. But it's an hour and a quarter drive. And they came just for the program. They're going to go back. An hour and a quarter. And we have people who came in from Michigan and people who come from Canada. Joanne Irving, whom I mentioned tonight, came with 2 friends from Canada. They come all the time. Not all the time, but they come a few times a year from Canada because, as Joanne said, I can't stay away. Neither can my friends. Begin to recognize that feeling. It's not something crazy in you. It's something wise. Okay. When we are not conscious, I'll go back. We all know that sometimes we are conscious and sometimes not. When we are not conscious, it appears to us as a darkness or a blank. But a jnani is aware of himself as neither conscious nor unconscious, but purely aware, a witness to the 3 states of the mind and their contents. The illusion of being the body-mind is there only because it is not investigated. You could put that statement on your refrigerator. The illusion of being the body-mind entity is there only because that illusion is not investigated. Non-investigation is the thread on which all the states of mind are strung. It's like darkness in a closed room. Listen, this is an uneducated cigarette salesman. Look what he's saying after his enlightenment. It's like, he says, it's like darkness in a closed room. It is there, apparently, but when the room is opened and light comes in, where does the darkness go? It goes nowhere, because it was not there. All names and forms of existence are rooted in non-inquiry, non-investigation. They are rooted in imagination. It is right to say, I am, but to say, I am this, a woman, I am that, old, that's a sign of not inquiring, not examining. It's a sign of mental weakness, lethargy. Questioner, he doesn't want to go into that. He says, but Maharaj, if everything is light, how did the darkness arise? How can there be darkness in the midst of light? Maharaj, there is no darkness in the midst of light. self-forgetfulness is the darkness. When we are absorbed in other things, in the not-self, we forget the real self. There's nothing unnatural about it. But why forget the self because of an excess of attachment? That one was for me. Why forget the self because of an excess of attachment? Because one of the things that holds us back at the end especially is an attachment to the beautiful people, to the loving. It's easy to be detached from the horrible people. We can forget them instantly. If we're not neurotic, we can drop the horrible people in our life. But what about the beautiful ones? What about the devoted ones? What about the loving sons and daughters and husbands and wives and friends? That's hard. But there is a way of dealing with that, and if I took that question now, we'd be here until tomorrow night. But it's a topic. Maybe I'll put it on the website where you can download former talks. This is not a commercial, it's an ashram kind of website. But you can get former talks on there. There's a feature called The Lion's Paw. And I called it that because an Hafiz poem says, I hold the lion's paw whenever I dance. It means whatever I'm doing, I'm holding tight to these teachings and to the Master and the connection. And whenever I get a question asked by many people, I think to put that on the lion's paw, and I answer according to Gurdjieff's understanding. So the last one had to do with witnessing, but that's a good one. How to deal with attachment, especially attachments who love you unconditionally. That's very hard to deal with, right? How many of you have ever had anybody who loved them unconditionally? Raise your hand. Try to get rid of them. They're like the hounds of heaven. The hounds of heaven. The party didn't want to go to heaven unless he could bring his hound with him, because he had been the most devoted to him. If I go to heaven, you have to let my dog in. And the story goes that the dog was actually Lord Vishnu in disguise. And once he was ready to give up, who was that? Yudhishthira, was it? And the dog? I think Yudhishthira. He was trying to enter heaven, and they were ready to take him because he had worked so hard to get there. But the only one that was able to keep up with him and not lag behind and give up was his dog. And Yudhishthira looked, his mother had dropped, his father had dropped. He said, we can't go with you, we can't do this. That's the journey towards truth. And his brothers and his uncles, everybody had given up, dropped. But he looked down, there was his faithful dog that had crossed icy streams with him and gone through fire. And he said, I'm sorry, even though your doors are open to me, I'm not going in unless my dog goes in. And he was told, your dog can go into heaven because, and this was the king of heaven, Indra, you can't come in here because we don't have dogs in heaven. He said, I'm not going. He starts to turn back, and the dog just transforms himself, and it was Lord Vishnu, a great God, and the maintainer, actually, of the entire universe. And he said, this was your final test. And then everything was transformed into heaven. Lovely story. So I'll just read one more question and answer, because there's a marvelous Taoist story I'm going to finish with. When we forget ourselves, that's the darkness. When we are absorbed in other things, in the not-self, we forget the self. There's nothing unnatural about it. But why forget the self? Through excess of attachment. Wisdom lies in never forgetting the self as the ever-present source of both the experiencer and his experience. Coming to the end of this, I am leaving out sections that are not on the subject for tonight. The questioner, after hearing Maharaj talking for 10 minutes, he says, Maharaj, your mind works in a very strange way. Maharaj, me? You are strange, not me. I'm the normal one here. I'm the sane one here. I see things as they are. That's why I'm not afraid of them. You're afraid of reality. Questioner, why should I be afraid of reality? Maharaj, it's ignorance of yourself that makes you afraid. And also, it's ignorance of yourself that makes you unaware that you're afraid. Don't try not to be afraid, by the way. Break down the wall of ignorance first. People are afraid to die because they do not know what death is. The knower of truth, the jnani has died before his death. He saw that there was nothing to be afraid of. The moment you know your real being, you're afraid of nothing. Death gives freedom. Death gives power. Death gives freedom and power. To be free in the world, you must die to the world. What is the world? It's the world of materialism. That's why they call it the relative world. We must die to everything unreal, relative. To be free in the world, you must die to the world. Then the universe is your own. It becomes your body. The whole universe becomes your body, the body of your consciousness, an expression and a tool for you. The happiness of being absolutely free is beyond description. On the other hand, he who is afraid of freedom cannot die. What does that mean? We have to die to the world in order to experience that we are always beyond the world. The world is for our enjoyment, but it's certainly not real. How often does the world seem completely different in the morning than it does at night? But we're seeing the world through our grief or our joy or our wisdom, but it keeps changing according to us. And yet it says, that remarkable statement, anyone who's afraid of freedom cannot die. Because it means, what are we talking about? What needs to die? Somebody said it earlier, in order for us to taste the freedom of I am. Ego. Boom, boom, boom. E-G-O. Somebody knocked 3 times. E-G-O. And the ego. The ego is the past. Without the past, there's no ego. I didn't say it. I don't know who said it before he said it, but it was a statement of Rajneesh's I never forgot. The ego is the past. Take away the past, there is no ego. Only freedom and joy. Okay. Feel free to raise a hand if you're completely lost, because there are new people here, and I never consider that. I just take the highest teachings. I must have known you were coming back from Radhari. I always reserved high teachings for you. Very good to see you. Okay. Questioner, after he says, the one who's afraid of freedom cannot die. Questioner, You mean that one who cannot die, cannot live? Well, put it as you like. Attachment is bondage. Detachment is freedom. To crave anything is to be a slave. Questioner, does it follow that if you're saved, if you are saved, then the world is saved? Maharaj, as a whole, the world does not need saving. Man makes mistakes and creates sorrows when it enters the field of awareness. When it enters the consciousness of a jnani, it is set right. I'll read that properly. As a whole, the world does not need saving. Man makes mistakes and creates sorrow. When it enters the field of awareness, the consciousness of a jnani, then it is set right. Such is his nature. Maharaj, from my point of view, everything happens by itself, quite spontaneously. But man imagines that he works for an incentive towards a goal. He has always a reward in mind and strives for it. Questioner, a crude, unevolved man will not work without a reward. Isn't it right to offer him incentives? Maharaj, powerful statement. Man will create for himself incentives anyway. He does not know that to grow is in the nature of consciousness. He's going to grow without the incentive. He will progress from motive to motive and will chase gurus for the fulfillment of his desires. When, by the laws of his being, he finds the way of return, that's when man abandons all motives, for his interest in the world is now over. He wants nothing, neither from others nor from himself. He dies to everything and becomes the all. To want nothing and to do nothing, that is true creation. To watch the universe emerging and subsiding in one's own heart is a wonder. There's a book of quotations of Sri Nisargadatta. What I just read is my favorite, from about 300 quotations. I don't know the name of the book, but it's a light blue cover. He says, to want nothing and do nothing, that is true creation. To watch the universe emerging and subsiding in one's own heart is a wonder. I think I'll go here. Questioner, is there no need for effort then, since you say things happen spontaneously? This is the final statement, that's why I'm reading it. Maharaj, when effort is needed, effort will appear. When effortlessness becomes essential, it will assert itself. You need not push life about. Just flow with it. Give yourself completely to the task. You use that word today, Mercedes. Give yourself completely to the task of the present moment, which is the dying now to the now. Because living is dying. Without death, life cannot be. Get hold of the main thing, that the world and the self are one and perfect. Only your attitude is faulty. That needs readjustment. This process of readjustment is what you call sadhana, practice. You come to it by putting an end to laziness, indolence. We do that by staying alert as a witness. Can't be a witness if you're lazy. Too lazy to witness even. But if you have any inclination to witness, that automatically gets rid of the laziness. You come to it by putting this process of readjustment is what you call sadhana, practice. You come to it by putting an end to indolence and using all your energy to clear the way for clarity and charity. Charity has implied in it service. In some way, even if it's a change of thinking about a person you don't like, you're being charitable when you say, if she knew better, she would do better. Or, I'll forget about it, sometimes I'm even worse than she is. We can say that. But that's being charitable. And if you can do acts of charity, that's fine too. You use all your energy to clear the way for clarity and charity. But in reality, these are all signs of inevitable growth. Don't be afraid. Don't resist. Don't delay. Be what you are. There's nothing to be afraid of. Trust and try. Trust and try. Experiment honestly. Give your real being a chance to shape your life. You will not regret it. You will not regret it. I read only a quarter of this conversation. But as I said, if you took one line from it, that was transformative for you. That was a eureka moment, a sudden seeing moment. Then this whole time that you've been at the ashram, the whole 9 days, has been worthwhile. If something from this extraordinary conversation was life-changing for you. Every time I read anything from I Am That, something clicks in me. I said, and I've been at this many years, 47 years, but each time you read something, you're new. So each time it's a different click. I want to finish with a 10-minute reading, just talking about how magical these gurus are. You have to go now, Kalakarni? Okay, no, you have a long drive. Okay, you can go now. Safe drive. Apparently you got something from tonight. Susan? First time, so you're welcome. You're welcome. It's the readings. You can thank me for choosing the readings. That I can accept. Come back soon. Okay. Our guru, the reason it's very difficult for me to even observe the Mahasamadhi day is because the guru has been more with me since he left his body than he was in his physical body, and many of the people here feel the same way. Every time I hear that squeaky door, I feel the guru likes that sound. He liked anything that was extreme. High, wonderful sound. But many of us who thrived on his warmth and his love and his approachability and his availability, it was so difficult to see the magic. He didn't reveal it often, only when it was needed. He had powers of alchemy. We didn't know. I didn't even know what that meant. Until after he left his body, I began to remember some of the miraculous things that happened when I was alone with him or I heard about from other people. He was extraordinary. And there's a story from Taoist readings from the book I think called Litsu and Taoism, I think. But Litsu was the principal disciple of Lao Tzu. Li Tzu was one of the great Taoist masters. Chuang Tzu, Lao Tzu, and Li Tzu were the three great pillars of Tao. But before I read that 10-minute story, or less, I won't be commenting because it's a story that has to be read from beginning to end. It's only a few pages. Any questions about the I Am That reading? How many of you felt you did get something that is brand new for you in your life from the reading? Would you raise your hand? Anything that jump out of you? If not, I can only tell you it will jump out very soon. Because sometimes you go into shock. You're a little traumatized. I know. Because sometimes you hear something that turns your life upside down. Just a sentence. And you're afraid of it. You don't want to hear that. Because it means that there's going to be a jump in your awareness and consciousness, and you don't know what that means. When I met Sri Brahmananda that day, that short conversation, I didn't understand what he said or meant until maybe 15, 20 years later. I didn't believe in reincarnation. I didn't know he was my teacher. I didn't even know what a guru was. I knew what God was, but I didn't know that the guru and the God are one and the same. And we had a 15, 20-minute conversation. I went home and drove the guest without being able to remember anything he said other than, "Don't worry, we are meeting again," after a very long time. And my first response was, "Meeting again? I don't know you. Why am I shaking? I'm not coming anymore to you. I'm not going to see you anymore." Because the ego pulls back. The ego feels danger. It does not want to die. And we back away. The statements I was reading tonight, pure Vedanta. If you understand those and you live by them, then you're very close to that rain of nectar, to that shower of bliss. But if you didn't get it, don't worry. Seeds, 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 seeds. It's like, I don't know you ever saw that wonderful Charlie Chaplin movie where somebody leaves him with about 10 children to take care of. And she left him cooking instructions. But he looked around at all these children crawling around on the floor. The little babies were there crawling around. So he just went to the food that she had prepared and he threw it out like the chickens. It was very funny. Well, that's how the image I got with Gurji and his seeds, one for you and one for you and one for you. And I will watch when it blossoms in 3 years or 2 years or 6 months. Because they do. You will remember this reading or something from this reading later on if you didn't get it tonight. Because you're here for a reason. Gurji said this program was custom designed for you and for me. All right. This is the reward, because this is the most extraordinary of the readings, although they've all been extraordinary. And you don't have to think. You just have to enjoy this story. You sure there are no questions? Usually when you ask a question, I have a chance to drink some water, but you don't ask any questions. How many of you thought you understood at least part of what was read tonight? Okay. How many found them uplifting or they made you happy listening? Okay, that means they're old for you. They're familiar to you. That's why on a deep level, you may not feel you're learning anything new, because it sounds so familiar. But these are reminders that we must have, otherwise we're going to do what Gurdjieff said we do every lifetime. After a lifetime of spiritual work and practice, when we get older, the fear of dying sets in again, and we forget everything we've learned. So we have to stick to these teachings. We have to go regularly to them, whether it's to this ashram or to your books or to the chanting, the Sanskrit, anything that keeps you connected. Because we were told by Gurdjieff, you can count on one hand the people who have been with him from the beginning and stayed till the very end. Because thousands have come and gone here. And we have to see the old timers who've been here for years, not living here, but coming every week. We have to see if getting old and ill doesn't frighten us about dying or losing people that we don't want to lose. Will we forget all the teachings? I keep hearing from elderly people who, as long as they were not ill, were very spiritual, very Vedantic. The minute a serious illness has come, and it's around me, I have several elderly friends who are ill, I'm worried about them. They're going to have to repeat this same lifetime all over again if they don't reconnect with what they know deep down. This is called Litsu and the Sorcerer. There was a sorcerer who could foretell the future. One look at someone's facial features, and he could tell whether this person would live or die, be lucky or unlucky. He could even tell an individual's age, day of birth, and day of death. Everybody stayed away from this sorcerer because they were afraid he might tell them things they would rather not know. Only Litsu was impressed with the sorcerer's ability and welcomed his company. Litsu was so taken by the sorcerer's power that he went to his teacher Hutsu and said, "In the past I thought you had mastered the mysteries of heaven and earth, but now I found someone who has more power than you." Hutsu said, "Ha! You've only scratched the surface of my teachings. I have not yet begun to show you the underlying nature of things, and you think you have understood the mysteries of the universe. If you interact with people with superficial knowledge, you'll be entirely predictable. I tell you what, you bring this sorcerer to me. Let's see what happens." The next day, Litsu brought the sorcerer to see Hutsu. Respectfully, Litsu waited outside. When the sorcerer came out, he said to Litsu, "I'm afraid I have bad news for you. Your master is about to die. At most, he'll have 10 days left." His face was like ash, and he was as immobile as a corpse. Litsu collapsed. He was distressed. He started to weep. Immediately he went in to see his teacher and related what the sorcerer had said. Hutsu said, "Ah, that's what he said? That's because I showed him the dominance of yin over yang. I made my body rigid and my breath dormant. Therefore he saw me dying. Ask him to come again." The next day, Litsu got the sorcerer to come again to see Hutsu. I love this story. This time, when he came out, the sorcerer said to Litsu, "Congratulations! Your master is getting better. He's lucky to have met me. I see signs of life in him since my last visit. When Litsu related what the sorcerer had said, Hutsu smiled. That time I showed him the dominance of yang over yin. The primordial breath had just awakened in me. I can't name it or describe it. It was rising from my heels to fill my body. Therefore, he saw me returning to life. Get him to come again. Tell him to come again. When the sorcerer saw Hutsu again, he said to Litsu, I don't know. That teacher of yours is changing all the time. I can't seem to read him. I'll come back when he's more stable. Hutsu then said to Litsu, this last time I showed him the copulation of yin and yang. He probably saw the process of creation and dissolution and the flux and change of things. Streams, rivers, waterfall, springs, lakes, rapids, eddies, all different manifestations of water, but eventually they all flow into deep pools. There are 9 pools, and I have shown him only 3. Tell him to come again. This time, why it's my favorite? This time, the sorcerer had scarcely walked into Hutsu's place when he came running out. Stop him, said Hutsu. So Litsu ran after the sorcerer, but wasn't fast enough. He just lost track of him. He was running in terror. So Litsu returned to his teacher and said, he ran so fast I couldn't catch up with him. What did you do? Hutsu then said, what I just showed him was what it was like before I came into the world. I had no shape, no form, no sound, no smell. I just drifted in and out of things. I could not be grasped or examined. He's never seen this kind of thing before, so I guess he got scared and ran for his life. From that time on, Litsu realized that his learning was shallow and that he was indeed far from understanding the way of heaven and earth. So he returned home and did not leave his house for 3 years. He cooked for his wife. He cooked for his wife and did the housework. He took care of the pigs. He was kind to everyone and everything. He distanced himself from worldly matters and freed himself from the entanglement of truths and lies. He was no longer a piece of carved jade, but an unhewn block of wood. In the midst of the muddy world, he remained true to himself, and in simplicity and stillness, he spent the rest of his life. I would give a reward to anyone, because I didn't see it before until I read these 3 readings aloud. I did not see the one message that was behind all these readings, including Rumi. Can anybody in the room say what was the thread that bound them together? Look, the rising and setting of the moon and the sun, the mud of the world, the living in simplicity. What's the message here? What's the message? Because if we leave this room without getting a sense of what's being said here, then we wasted a time. It's here, it's all here. I didn't get it until I read all 3. I didn't even know they were connected. until I read similar words in each. Didn't you hear a similar message? What? Give me a message for you. Anybody. Tell me what you're taking with you when you go back to the city or go back to your life. Anything. It could be simply that my life's too darn complicated. I need to be simple. Diane?
Be present.
Oh, I'm so glad you clarified what you said. Diana said to be present in the moment. I thought she said to be pregnant. I got scared because I remember a program on Fulton Street that I gave, and it's one of your friends, Shanti was there, somebody you know, and the talk was on freedom, how to be inwardly free, and what's needed to be inwardly free. It was Krishnamurti, a very high talk, and I said, if anybody wants to call me or contact me about any question, because there's no time, or any change that took place because of this evening. She called this woman, and she said, thank you so much. After hearing you speak, I've decided to divorce my husband. I said, what did I say? I said that it's inwardly free that we have to aim for. It's not outwardly free. She says, but in order for me to be inwardly free, I have to be outwardly free. I said, no, not necessarily. Sometimes your freedom consists in being loving towards someone who can't be loving to you. Whatever is needed for closure. But I thought, now I'm looking at someone who just found out the thing to do is become pregnant. I'm so relieved that you said what you said is to be present. If you came out with that, Dan, that's more than can be hoped for. To be present requires what? Because we all need that. If we can be present, then we needn't ever grieve again. We needn't ever be afraid again. What's the main thing to be present for?
Drop the past.
To say drop the past, Mercedes, you're right. To drop the past, but in order to drop the past, we have to be aware of what created the past. And what created the past, that's interfering with our present, that we need, is the thinking mind. We're not aware when we're thinking. Sometimes I'm an old timer at meditation. I've been doing it every day for 47 years. But I'm amazed how tricky my mind is, how cunning it is. I will sit down in my lovely meditation room by the Hudson River. We have a beautiful place for meditation. And I will think I'm meditating, and I'll look up at the clock, and 15 minutes has gone by, and my mind has been thinking the whole time. Not empty. So instantly, when I'm present to be aware of that, when I witness that, instantly I go back to witnessing, which means just to be in the moment. It's such a lovely tool that the ancient teachers have given us. In the scriptures they talk about witnessing. Gurdjieff called it the tool or the weapon against the thinking mind. Because you cannot be witnessing and thinking at the same time. If you're thinking, you're not witnessing. If you're witnessing, thinking can't get in there. True? Okay. So Diana, you were the brave one, but the rest of you may, most of the time after let's say a silent retreat, and I ask for feedback, the experiences have been so powerful for the retreatants that many of them don't know what to say. It's too soon and they can't talk yet. They go home silent. Those are in May, the silent retreats. And months later, I will get an email from the different people giving their reaction to that retreat, that it's still happening with them 6 months later. So, any questions? Anything at all? Any comments? I'll ask the question Gurji asked, since he opened with, there's a rain of nectar all around us. I'll ask the question that he usually asked. How many of you feel happier now than when you first came in this room? Raise hands. That's all you need. I don't care if you understood anything. He says, because truth will set you free. Truth will make you happy. And this is the truth. These are the teachings of Vedanta. So take a deep breath. And now as you breathe out, release all the language, all the words. This will only be 60 seconds. So feel yourself letting go and opening up to this now. Feeling it, perceiving it, imbibing it. Sometimes it only takes 1 minute to reconnect with your real life, your real home. I am that I am. That is our home. Krishna Devi, would you lead us in our traditional prayer? Thank you, Krishna Devi. And if some of you are feeling very high, that you may need a designated driver, take 2 cookies. Chocolate